Chapter 1402. 1402 Yi Wanwan remained calm and elegant upon seeing that President Bai. Back then, you left the Fearless Alliance and broke off all contact. We'd like to know where President Bai went and why you abandoned the Fearless Alliance you created with your own hands. A reporter asked Yi Wanwan with a microphone in their hand. Yi Wanwan was unmoved and glanced at the reporter before aloofly saying, "No comment." She didn't expect the independent state to also have gossip agencies, but after her experience with all the chaotic and dark shredding in China's entertainment industry and media industry, this type of situation was child's play to Yi Wanwan. President Bai. Then why did you return to the independent state and the Fearless Alliance? Your disappearance and return have become an unsolvable mystery. Could you explain it to us? No comment, Yi Wanwan answered indifferently. Yi Wanwan naturally understood the saying, "He that talks much errs much." A succinct, "no comment," was the best answer. Then, President Bai, everyone knows that your Fearless Alliance was the most ferocious and attacked the most intensely when all the powers in the independent state besieged Azura back then. This time, did you come here to apologize to Lord Azura and offer a large amount in tributes? The reporter was tenacious and immediately switched the topic. Yi Wanwan's eyes shifted. She couldn't reply to other things, but she definitely could talk about this. Everything she said would be discovered by the Martial Arts Union, so wasn't this the best time for her to show her attitude? Ha! Yi Wanwan's lips turned up with a bone-chilling smirk as she looked at the reporter. I came merely to see how much of a failure Lord Azura's conference will be. That's all. My Fearless Alliance will never pay tributes to any faction or person. However, if Azura and Lord Azura are willing to pay tributes to me, perhaps I'll consider it. A commotion tore through the crowd at Yi Wanwan's words as they stared at Yi Wanwan in disbelief. Wasn't the president of the Fearless Alliance too gutsy? How could she dare to say this kind of thing? Even if those were her true thoughts, she should keep it to herself. This was Lord Azura's territory, after all. Wasn't the president seeking death by coming to Lord Azura's territory and saying these kinds of things? Ha! Bai Feng, long time no see, but your guts have gotten bigger. Melodic laughter was heard nearby. A moment later, a pretty woman with a noble bearing slowly walked toward them. Several formidable experts followed behind the woman. Everyone was taken back when they saw this woman. The newcomer was from the Yen family. Who's this woman who dares to speak to the president of the Fearless Alliance like this? A spectator looked curious. She's from the Yen family, the pearl of the Yen patriarch. No wonder, so she's Yen Yun, the spectator nodded pensively. The Yen family from back then naturally couldn't compare to the Fearless Alliance at its peak, but things were different now. Following the disappearance of the president of the Fearless Alliance fractured into several camps and was embroiled in endless inner turmoil while the Yen family rapidly developed. The Yen family wasn't currently weaker than the Fearless Alliance anymore. As for this beloved daughter of the Yen patriarch, she was used to being haughty and domineering in the independent state and had an extremely egotistical personality. Her martial arts skills were also extraordinarily high and she was labeled a genius, one who only appeared in the Yen family every other century. Moreover, she was the Yen family's heiress. Chapter 1403. 1403, Yen Yun, you don't have the right to speak here. 7-Star walked to Yi Wanwan's side and coldly looked at Yen Yun. Yen Yun glanced at 7-Star and snorted. 7-Star, you're just President Fearless dog. I don't even care about President Fearless, so who do you think you are? The audience fervently discussed amongst themselves. Lord Azura had a decent relationship with the previous head of the Yen family. After the current head came into his position, he wanted to marry his precious daughter, Yen Yun, to Lord Azura, but before he could say anything, Lord Azura disappeared. In the past years, Yen Yun considered herself Lord Azura's wife and often mobilized a small portion of Azura's power to bulldoze the Yen family's obstacles while Lord Azura was missing. Otherwise, the Yen family wouldn't have developed so rapidly. Because of this, Yen Yun asserted her position as Lord Azura's wife to outsiders. Ha! First President Fearless offends Lord Azura and now she offends Yen Yun. I'm afraid she really won't leave this conference alive today. I heard several higher-ups of the Yen family also came today, including the patriarch of the Yen family. Patriarch Yen seems to want to declare the marriage of his precious daughter, Yen Yun, to Lord Azura. Yi Wanwan ignored Yen Yun. Before Yi Wanwan could do anything, an elderly man arrived next to Yen Yun. He first glanced at Yi Wanwan before saying to Yen Yun, "Yunner, how could you speak so rudely to President Bai? You have to know that from today onward, perhaps President Bai will kneel before you and present you with a tribute. You have to be more courteous to those people who are destined to end up underneath our feet." Big Dipper and Seven Stars' expressions both shifted. This elderly man was Patriarch Yen. All the reporters turned around and circled Patriarch Yen and his beloved daughter, Yen Yun, upon their arrival. "Elder Yen, I heard a member of the Yen family offended President Fearless at some club and was killed by President Fearless. Will the Yen family seek revenge?" Yen Yun snorted. "You'll see in a moment." Big Dipper stood in front of Yi Wanwan and spat at Patriarch Yen and Yen Yun. "What rubbish! We'll eventually destroy you." Yi Wanwan looked away from the Yen family and aloofly said, "Don't forget our objective today. Ignore the others." Big Dipper and Seven Star nodded. The objective of this trip was to show their attitude to the martial arts union. Yi Wanwan looked at the bosses who kept arriving at the manor and sighed involuntarily. Wasn't Lord Azura's influence too terrifying? Thankfully, Nameless Nya assigned the Star Destroyer team to her. There were only 3 people, but it shouldn't be a problem for them to protect her and flee if they ran into a dangerous situation. Yi Wanwan's courage puffed up again at that thought. When some leaders saw Yi Wanwan and discovered she was the president of the Fearless Alliance, they were surprised. Who could have expected President Fearless to attend Lord Azura's conference? A moment later, the 3-member Star Destroyer team exited their car and walked to Yi Wanwan's side. The child, Fusheng, silently stood in front of Yi Wanwan with a grave expression. Chapter 1404. Meanwhile, the curly-haired man wore a mesmerizing smile and acted gentlemanly. If he didn't mention it, no one would have expected this stately man to be a member of the Star Destroyer mercenary team. Mercenaries like them were all mysterious and rarely entered the public eye in order to avoid enemies seeking revenge. Even if they came out, no one knew their identity. Sis Feng. Should we eliminate Lord Azura this time? If you require an assassination, the compensation. Sis Feng, you understand my meaning right, the curly-haired man said to Yi Wanwan with a faint smile. Yi Wanwan rolled her eyes. She was already taking a huge risk by coming here. She would be done for if she assassinated Lord Azura too. How could you possibly assassinate Lord Azura? Big Dipper walked up, disdain apparent on his face. We have him. The curly-haired man pointed at Fusheng. Fusheng was ranked 15 in Europe's assassin chart. Aside from his strength, Fusheng also had his deceptive appearance and figure. No need, Yi Wanwan said, act according to my orders. Everything else is unnecessary. The curly-haired man didn't say anything else since Yi Wanwan said that. Moreover, how could Lord Azura be easy to assassinate? If something went wrong, their lives would end there. Plus, Yi Wanwan only gave them an IOU. President Bai, since you're here, please enter. The Azura emissary who was kicked out of the Fearless Alliance by Yi Wanwan walked toward Yi Wanwan in a black suit. Yi Wanwan snorted but stayed silent and strolled into the manor. Inside the manor, there was all the champagne, wine, food, and snacks that anyone could possibly imagine. All sorts of boss-level characters walked around the manor. Yi Wanwan examined the manor's surroundings but didn't discover Trance. In the end, Yi Wanwan realized that Trance had received Azura's invitation but didn't come, using his actions to resist Azura. Without Trance as an ally, Yi Wanwan's situation was more awkward. Every faction who came today seemed to have an amicable relationship with Azura or agreed to pay a tribute. Yi Wanwan was the only odd one out. Soon, a group of men and women and brazenly sized up Yi Wanwan. A girl snorted and said, President Fearless, since you dared to attend Lord Azura's conference today, you probably don't plan to leave alive, right? Since it's like that, how about we kill you and curry some favor from Lord Azura? What do you think? Huh, Big Dipper was baffled. He looked at the girl and broke out in loud laughter. Kill us. Are you sleepwalking? What? Do you think you'll leave here alive? The young men and women laughed loudly. Based on Yi Wanwan's assessment, these young men and women were all members of the Yen family. The Yen family probably wanted to strike a blow at her ahead of time by relying on their relationship with Lord Azura. Hold on. The mercenary in a Chinese tunic suit with gold-framed glasses next to Yi Wanwan walked toward the Yen group. Scram to the side. It's none of your business, the leading woman sneered. Bloodthirsty emotions surfaced in the man's eyes instantly. Swish. In a flash, the glasses man attacked, a finger shooting forward. A second later, a pop was heard and glasses man's finger pierced the woman's left eye. Under everyone's incredulous gazes, the woman wailed in pain and blood rushed out of her eye. You. The members of the Yen family hastily carried the girl away. Glasses man was expressionless as he took a black handkerchief from his pocket and lightly wiped the blood off his finger. Sis Feng, look, you'll need to increase our compensation. Our attacks come at a cost, the curly-haired man earnestly said as he walked up and took out his handy calculator, his slender fingers flying over the buttons on the calculator. Yi Wanwan was utterly dumbfounded. I didn't tell them to attack. Are they tricking me? How do they still have the face to demand money from me? Chapter 1405, Blinding One Eye, $500. If you want follow-up service and a broken leg, it'll cost $200. If you want someone killed, that'll be $1,000, Sis Feng, the curly-haired man mumbled to himself. Yi Wanwan, oh right, Sis Feng, how many people do you plan to kill today? We have a discount. Kill 10 and you get 1 free, kill 20 and you get 3 free. The curly-haired man looked at Yi Wanwan. Are you, truly that poor? Yi Wanwan couldn't control her lips from twitching. Ah, the curly-haired man sighed lightly and shook his head. He quietly asked her, Sis Feng, considering your friendship with Lord Nya, don't you know why we're so poor? Yi Wanwan shook her head. How would I know? In truth, it's like this. Back then, Lord Nya was full of youthful vigor and had several serious explosive clashes with Patriarch Nya and Madame Nya. After that, he swore he'd never use a penny from the Nya family. If he used even a penny from the Nya family, his whole family would die, the curly-haired man explained with a mysterious expression. Yi Wanwan didn't know whether to cry or laugh after hearing that. No wonder nameless Nya was so poor and considered money as important as his life despite being the eldest young master of the Nya family. It turned out he truly was poor. Yi Wanwan could understand that kind of situation though. During nameless Nya's argument with his parents when he was younger, he said some harsh things like never using the Nya family's money simply to retain his pride. Also, nameless Nya's oath was very problematic. If he used the Nya family's money, his whole family would die. This way, even if nameless Nya begged on his knees, Madame Nya and Patriarch Nya wouldn't give a single penny to nameless Nya. However, Yi Wanwan was still confused. Isn't nameless Nya a mercenary? Isn't being a mercenary very profitable? The curly-haired man wanted to cry. Sis Feng, that's true, but the mercenary business is in a slump and Lord Nya swore to revitalize the mercenary industry and would accept reasonable missions free of charge. He accepts some living expenses for compensation at most. Everyone knew about this. Hence, although the mercenary industry did start blooming again because of Lord Nya has to suffer for the sake of his pride, so he only accepts a few thousand at most for missions. We can't help it, we have to obey the rules set by Lord Nya. Yi Wanwan, this was indeed something that nameless Nya would do. Currently, everyone was staring at Yi Wanwan and her group with furrowed brows, and some people looked surprised and incredulous. This was a conference organized by Lord Azura, but President Fearless allowed her subordinates to commit physical assault in this type of setting and act so viciously. Moreover, the other party was the Yen family. President Fearless, aren't your actions trampling on the Yen family and Lord Azura's faces? Patriarch Yen and several higher-ups from the Yen family stepped forward. You vicious bitch, how could you? Yen Yun stared at Yuan Wan icily. Originally, our Yen family was generous and forgiving about the matter last time and wasn't going to make you pay for it. Yet, we gave you an inch and you wanted a mile. Yuan Wan's brows locked together. She invited public outrage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The curly-haired man lifted his right hand and used his finger to count the members of the Yen family. Then the curly-haired man pulled out his calculator and plugged in some numbers. He placed the calculator in front of Yuan Wan and said with an ingratiating smile, Sis Feng, look, there's a total of 14 people in the Yen family. Based on the head count, it'll cost $1,000 to kill each person and $18,000 to kill 14 people. Chapter 1406. Yuan Wan looked at the curly-haired man, bewildered. If each person is $1,000, isn't 14 people $14,000? And it's buy 10 get 1 free, so it should be $13,000, right? The curly-haired man became embarrassed. I didn't calculate it wrong on purpose. Alright, it's $13,000 then. Should we start killing, Sis Feng? The powerful figures of various factions all looked at Yuan Wan and her group. President Fearless acts just like the rumors. Isn't she too arrogant? An elderly man grunted. President Fearless is called Bro Flat Top. If she wasn't arrogant and brassy, why would she be called Bro Flat Top? A powerful figure snorted. Today, I'd like to see whether the supposed Bro Flat Top will leave this manor alive. Regardless of what the Yen family does, Lord Azura definitely won't allow her to live. The previous patriarch of the Yen family was friends with Lord Azura, and they say Yen Yun will be married to Lord Azura. President Fearless will die without a doubt today for humiliating the Yen family like this. The Yen family watched how Yuan Wan was trying to buy their lives in front of them. What was more detestable was that each of their lives was only worth $1,000, and it was fucking buy 10 get 1 free. Kill her, a higher-up from the Yen family shouted harshly. Come. If you don't kill me, I'm your father, and 7 Star is your grandfather. Big Dipper chortled and turned to 7 Star. Right, old 7. 7 Star glanced at Big Dipper and answered on this rare occasion. Yes. Yuan Wan, Big Dipper. Before the Yen family could attack, Yen Yun coldly interjected, no need to get angry for now, everyone. The Yen family was taken back and looked confused. They didn't understand why Yen Yun didn't allow them to attack. This is my future husband, Lord Azura's home turf. Since President Fearless accepted the invitation, she's also a guest of Lord Azura. Since President Fearless was so arrogant and brassy and harmed members of the Yen family on Lord Azura's home turf, she should be rightfully punished by Lord Azura. We should respect Lord Azura. Otherwise, wouldn't this conference be a joke? Yen Yun explained aloofly. The members of the Yen family frowned pensively upon hearing that. After carefully thinking about it, they realized Yen Yun was right. It was Lord Azura who called this conference. No matter what President Fearless did, she was also a guest invited by Lord Azura. If conflict broke out between them and the Fearless Alliance here, it would look like they weren't giving face to Lord Azura and would negatively impact Yen Yun. After all, Yen Yun was publicly recognized as Lord Azura's wife. Alright, we'll listen to Yun'er and won't fight with this damn bitch for the time being. A higher-up from the Yen family nodded. The various powerful figures present all inwardly gave Yen Yun a thumbs up. The beloved daughter of the Yen family was truly considerate and sensible, prioritizing the big picture. President Fearless is doomed today. Ignoring her prior animosities with Lord Azura, he'd kill her without a doubt if only to seek retribution for his beloved woman, an elderly man said with a light chuckle. The people near him all voiced their agreement. Yi Wanwan was inwardly cursing the Star Destroyer mercenary team's ancestors. They were professionals at getting their employers into trouble. Chapter 1407. She originally only agreed to attend Lord Azura's conference to make her stance clear to the Martial Arts Union. Who knew it would progress to this state? As expected, Nameless Nye's people were all freaking unreliable. Sis Feng, do we kill or not? The patriarch of the Yen family and his daughter, Yen Yun, are stronger, so we might have to charge extra. An extra 1,000 or so for each one, that should be fine, right? The curly-haired man asked Yi Wanwan urgently. This was a large sale, so he had to grasp this opportunity. Stop thinking about killing people. Prepare to escape later. Yi Wanwan felt utterly helpless. It'll cost something to escape too. At that time, if a fight really breaks out, the three of us will protect you and your two subordinates while we escape, but we'll be in danger, so this will cost more than killing someone. At least $20,000. Otherwise, it's out of the question, the curly-haired man jabbered on as his fingers furiously tapped his calculator. Yi Wanwan wanted to die. Did Nameless Nye really send them here to help her instead of getting her into trouble? Couldn't he have found some people more normal and reliable, leaving her an escape route at least? Everyone. A white-haired elderly man slowly walked out of the manor and swept his eyes across the guests. Allow me to introduce myself, I'm Lord Azura's steward. Lord Azura will arrive momentarily. Please remain calm. Everyone nodded in response. Yi Wanwan started leisurely strolling around the manor when she heard about Lord Azura's imminent arrival. Instead of a stroll, she was actually trying to remember the escape routes. Otherwise, she, 7-star, add Big Dipper would seriously be done for in this damn place today. Anyway, she'd made her stance clear, and the Martial Arts Union would definitely learn about the events today. After Lord Azura came out, she would throw a few insults at him then beat it. Yi Wanwan came for nothing else but to express her loyalty to the Martial Arts Union and make her stance clear to the Martial Arts Union. According to Yi Wanwan's plan, she'd only make a small commotion, which should be too dangerous already, but with the Star Destroyer team's assistance, they would probably. In a corner of the manor, Yi Wanwan frowned as she planned an escape route in her head. Suddenly, a man in black walked toward her, and she didn't pay attention, so they ran into each other. Are you blind? The man in black loudly cursed. Yi Wanwan's expression chilled and she was about to say something. In the next second though, Glasses Man attacked in a flash and struck the man's chest. A loud bang was heard, and the man in black flew back several meters like a snipped kite. The man in black was knocked into the crowd with a hit. President Bai, aren't you too insolent? Could it be that you find us displeasing and want to compare notes with us, President Bai? Several powerful figures knocked into by the man in black all stood up and angrily glared at Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan clutched her forehead helplessly. How's this related to me? It wasn't me who hit them. It was that Glasses Man from the Star Destroyer mercenary team. Seek him out instead. Unfortunately, these three people came with her, so she couldn't cast away her relationship with them even if she wanted to. Chapter 1408, Sis Feng, he protected you just now. That hit costs $500. Remember it and don't forget it. The curly-haired man walked to Yi Wanwan's side and pressed a few numbers on the calculator before placing it in front of Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan surveyed the curly-haired man and wanted to say something but pursed her lips, staying silent. Are we sure the Star Destroyer mercenary team didn't come here to sabotage me? The person hit by Glasses Man was a member of Azura. All the powerful figures turned to Yi Wanwan. This woman was seriously arrogant to the max. Not only did she attack the Yen family but she also dared to attack Lord Azura's people. Ha, it looks like President Fearless is truly suicidal. She attacked the Yen family earlier and she's starting to attack Lord Azura's people now. You can't stop some people when they want to die. Just treat it as a free show. I really look forward to how wretchedly President Fearless will die when Lord Azura comes. The glasses man in a Chinese tunic suit pushed up his glasses and looked at Yuan Wan. Sis Feng, Lord Nia told us to protect you closely, so we'll attack anyone who threatens and disrespects you. With us here, Sis Feng doesn't need to act or have any worries. Yuan Wan's lips twitched when she heard glasses man's words. I'm in more freaking danger with you guys here. Yuan Wan's martial arts skills might be decent in China, but they were disgraceful amidst the experts in the independent state. Yuan Wan couldn't beat a single expert or boss present, perhaps they could even trample her with a single finger. If she was in the Fearless Alliance's territory and had a numerical advantage, she wouldn't need to be afraid, but where was she? She was in Azura's territory, not the Fearless Alliance's territory. If she truly incited public fury, she wouldn't even know how she died. Yuan Wan's original plan only included aggravating Lord Azura, which would only be considered rude. It shouldn't be difficult for her to extract herself if it was a mere commotion she caused. However, the Star Destroyer mercenary team seriously offended everyone there. Sis Feng, many of the factions here are inferior to the Fearless Alliance, but their leaders dare to scorn you and even want you to die. I think, their actions are a giant insult toward you, Sis Feng. Hence, I think we can kill them all and let them know President Fearless' dignity can't be challenged so easily. The curly-haired man spoke seriously and didn't wait for Yuan Wan's reply before he started counting heads earnestly. The people who were pointed at by the curly-haired man all exploded with fury and wanted to charge at Yuan Wan with everything they had. At that time, a group of austere and imposing men in black who were fully armed started heading toward them while guarding one person. The leading man had a cold and detached expression and ash-colored hair. His dark, unfathomable eyes were akin to an icy abyss and didn't contain a single trace of human emotion. Following this man's appearance, the manor's temperature plunged down to the freezing point. This is Lord Azura. Fear and dread surfaced in the powerful figure's eyes when they saw the man. Chapter 1409 Lord Azura had always been mysterious. Everyone knew his name in the independent state, but very few people knew his true appearance. The man looked like he was one with the knight in his black suit. After his appearance, the conflict provoked by the president of the Fearless Alliance mellowed, and everyone turned silent. Soon, the man walked to the dead center of the manor under everyone's fearful and reverent gaze. He stopped, his eyes sweeping over the crowd. Yen Yun was intently staring at him, her face brimming with excitement. This man was truly the esteemed and supreme Lord Azura. She'd once seen him many years ago. After all these years, he didn't seem to have changed too much except for his hair turning ashen. The man sat down on the raised seat in the front, assessing everyone as a superior. Everyone confirmed this man was the esteemed Lord Azura without a doubt as they watched him sitting down. Greetings, Lord Azura. Dozens of leaders rose and spoke while cupping their fists toward the man on his throne. The man was expressionless when he heard them and curtly nodded in response. Sis Feng, Sis Feng. It's Lord Azura. Lord Azura's here, Big Dipper quietly reminded Yuan Wan in excitement. Yuan Wan was hiding behind the curly-haired man, Big Dipper, and the others, afraid that Lord Azura would notice her. Yuan Wan covertly said to the curly-haired man, Curly, watch me for orders and prepare to flee at any moment. Sis Feng, don't worry. We're professionals. The curly-haired man nodded vehemently to comfort her. Yuan Wan didn't wish to acknowledge this professional troublemaking group anymore and secretly glanced at Lord Azura on his throne. Before escaping, she had to look at the famous Lord Azura's true appearance. Rumors claimed Lord Azura was incredibly ugly. She wondered how ugly he was. Lord Azura was also currently surveying the Fearless Alliance. And so, when Yuan Wan secretly peered up, her eyes clashed with his eyes unexpectedly. When the duo saw each other, they froze. Disbelief and shock surfaced in Lord Azura's eyes. Yuan Wan was even more stunned. When she saw Lord Azura's face, she felt like she was struck by transcendent lightning. In contrast to how Yi Wanwan was shaken to her core, Lord Azura looked away after a brief second, as though he was unintentionally looking at her and didn't want to leave any clues behind. Sis Feng, what's wrong? Are you okay? Sis Feng, Big Dipper hurriedly asked with concern upon sensing something amiss in Yi Wanwan's expression. However, Yi Wanwan was intently staring at the man on the throne, completely unresponsive, as though she was afraid the man would disappear if she blinked. Ahem, Big Dipper couldn't help mumbling upon seeing that. Sis Feng. Sis Feng, wake up. You didn't take a liking to Lord Azura's beauty, right? He didn't expect Lord Azura's looks to be so havoc-wreaking. Big Dipper called out several more times, and Yi Wanwan finally returned to her senses, disbelief still evident on her face. If she wasn't blind, the man sitting on the throne named Lord Azura was. See Yihan. Chapter 14:10 Yi Wanwan's mind was an utter mess. According to Taoist devotee and nameless Nya, they looked for news of Si Yihan after returning to the independent state. Si Yihan should be a member of the Si clan. However, the man on the throne was clearly identical to Si Yihan aside from his head of ashen hair. Although Yi Wanwan wanted to go up immediately and ask him, she wasn't dumb. She couldn't expose herself in this kind of setting. There was also a point that Yi Wanwan didn't understand. The man on the throne clearly met her eyes, so if he was Si Yihan, why didn't he recognize her or react at all? I didn't expect the mysterious Lord Azura to break his mysteriousness today and expose himself in front of the world. It appears Azura will walk into the spotlight from behind the scenes. They probably have something major planned, the curly-haired man said. The man on the throne was imperceptibly surveying everyone and quickly looking away, as though he was unwilling to let Yi Wanwan discover his identity. Senior Fu. Si Yihan called the steward next to him. My lord, what instructions do you have? The elderly steward, Senior Fu, went up swiftly. Tell Lin Ke to refrain from appearing, Si Yihan ordered. Senior Fu looked slightly confused as to why Lord Azura laid down this order but nodded and left. Lin Ke was currently heading towards Si Yihan's direction with large strides. Before he could get any closer, he was pulled aside by Senior Fu. Senior Fu, what are you doing? Lin Ke asked, bewildered. Lord Azura's orders. He doesn't want you to appear, the elderly steward calmly conveyed. What? Lin Ke was baffled. Doesn't want me to appear? Why? Senior Fu said, these are my lord's wishes. What's he up to? Why isn't he allowing me to appear? The confused Lin Ke accidentally caught something in the corners of his eyes. He saw Yi Wanwan's profile in the crowd and immediately froze. Damn, Lin Ke looked like he saw a ghost and incredulously rubbed his eyes. If he wasn't blind, wasn't that woman Yi Wanwan? Lin Ke felt his head swelling up like a balloon. Isn't Yi Wanwan in China? How did she come to the independent state, and also appear in the conference summoned by Ninth Brother? Lin Ke finally understood why Ninth Brother told the steward to stop him from appearing. Ninth Brother probably didn't plan to admit his identity to Yi Wanwan. If he showed up, wouldn't he expose Ninth Brother completely? Lin Ke wiped his sweat and quickly dodged to the side, not daring to walk any closer. Afraid that Yi Wanwan would see him, he was forced to hide in the corner and secretly assess the venue. In the manner, Si Yihan was silent for a while before detachedly saying, I believe everyone is aware of this conference's objective. Yan Yun promptly took the initiative to walk towards Si Yihan and frantically nodded. We know. Our Yan family will cooperate with everything we have and offer our tributes on time every month as agreed upon. Si Yihan aloofly glanced at Yan Yun and didn't say anything. Yan Yun looked a little disappointed but continued to stare at the man in infatuation. Chapter 14:11 Yi Wanwan watched how Si Yihan flirted with Yan Yun, anger involuntarily rising in her heart. Shortly after, the various leaders stood up with ingratiating smiles. It's truly our honor to be able to see Lord Azura's true appearance today. Since we accepted Lord Azura's invitation for this conference, we'll, of course, obey the rules established by Lord Azura and hand over the correct tribute every month. A red-haired man standing next to Lord Azura sneered when he saw the various factions successively standing up and expressing their loyalty. Every single one of these factions declined to offer tributes after Lord Azura left, but every one of them acted like loyal dogs as soon as Lord Azura returned. What a joke! Lord Azura will naturally obey the rules of the game you established. However, some people are extremely arrogant and never plan to pay their tribute. An unknown leader looked at Yuan Wan with a sarcastic smile. Before Yuan Wan could speak, Big Dipper suddenly stood forward and acted haughtily. Don't joke with me. Our president already told you to keep daydreaming if you want us to pay tributes. But we'll consider it if your Azura wants to pay tributes to our fearless alliance every month. Although Si Yihan remained expressionless, the expression of the red-haired man behind Si Yihan chilled and darkened instantly. It was so dark that ink could drip from it. Back when Azura was besieged by the various major factions, the fearless alliance attacked the fiercest, cheered the loudest, cursed the harshest. Now, the president of the fearless alliance trampled on Azura's territory with barely any people and acted insolently. Did she want to leave as a corpse? Is that so? The red-haired man eerily said while staring at Big Dipper. Ha, is that so, your grandmother's ass? With your grandfather Big Dipper here, let's fight if you dare, son of a bitch. I'll show you grandfather Big Dipper's might. Big Dipper provoked while pointing at the red-haired man. Their goal in coming here was to instigate trouble and wreck Lord Azura's conference anyway, so Big Dipper let loose completely. Yuan Wan sighed and facepalmed. Just what kind of sin did she commit? Instigating trouble wasn't the same as seeking death. This wasn't how you instigated trouble. She clearly told Big Dipper the plan before. You're dead. A murderous glint flashed through the red-haired man's eyes, and he strode toward Big Dipper and Yuan Wan. However, at that moment, the man on the throne apathetically called out, Jiang Yan won. The red-haired man, Jiang Yan, turned around and looked at the man. Withdraw, Si Yihan ordered aloofly. Yes, Jiang Yan didn't question him at all and receded to the side at once. No one ever dared to doubt Lord Azura's words in Azura. Lord Azura, a higher-up from the Yen family, walked forward and looked at Si Yihan. Not to mention President Fearless' arrogance and insolence, but President Fearless dared to blind someone from our Yen family in front of everyone despite being on Lord Azura's home turf today. We hope Lord Azura can provide us with justice. Si Yihan reflexively glanced at Yuan Wan but promptly looked away. Yuan Wan's brows knitted together. That man had identical looks to Si Yihan but didn't acknowledge her after seeing her. What in the world is going on? Is he not Si Yihan? Or is he in some kind of unspeakable predicament, and it wouldn't be good for him to acknowledge me now? Chapter 14:12 Sis Feng, that's good enough. Let's flee, Big Dipper said to Yuan Wan. Yuan Wan surveyed her surroundings. Ever since Lord Azura's arrival, Azura's forces had sealed off the manor. It wouldn't be easy to escape. No worries, we're here. The curly-haired man revealed a mesmerizing smile. Big Dipper gave the curly-haired man a thumbs up. Reliable. Of course. We're very professional. The curly-haired man nodded with a smile. The higher-ups of the Yen family brought out the Yen woman whose left eye was blinded earlier. That woman's eyes were professionally treated and bandaged now, and she looked rather savage and sorry. Lord Azura. It's the work of that bitch, President Fearless, a higher-up from the Yen family coldly stated. President Fearless, Si Yihan looked toward Yuan Wan, an inexplicable glint flickering in his eyes. Si Yihan didn't know why Yuan Wan traveled to the independent state from China. Before he left China, he left behind several capable people to secretly protect Yuan Wan. He naturally knew about the Si family's matters as well as the Yi family's matters, but he didn't worry since it shouldn't be too difficult for Yuan Wan to resolve these matters with her capabilities. Moreover, Si Yihan left Yi Wanwan behind in China not only to protect her but also out of a desire to make her rapidly grow on her own. Even gods had moments of miscalculation and error, let alone humans. Yi Wanwan couldn't keep growing under the protection of his wings. Otherwise, as soon as he aired, Yi Wanwan would be akin to fragile glass. Her fate would be evident, glass would shatter but iron wouldn't. It was only by increasing her own power that she could ensure her own safety. Si Yihan looked away. He hadn't received any news that Yi Wanwan came to the independent state. Also, based on her appearance, she didn't look like she recovered her previous memories. Lord Azura, you must give justice to our Yen family. The higher-up of the Yen family looked at Si Yihan before turning to Yi Wanwan with a sneer. Are you telling me what to do? Si Yihan's frosty gaze turned to the higher-up from the Yen family. The Yen higher-up was briefly startled before hastily denying, no. It's not like that. Si Yihan turned to Senior Fu and said, the events? The elderly steward nodded and quietly explained the whole story to Si Yihan. Si Yihan said coldly, President Bai is an honored guest invited by me, but the members of the Yen family caused trouble without cause. Kill. The red-haired man strode toward the woman without any hesitation, and the woman's neck was snapped in half by the red-haired man before anyone from the Yen family could react. Everyone found this scene utterly incredulous, especially Patriarch Yen, Yen Yun, and their group. Awesome, no wonder Azura is supreme, Big Dipper mused. Lord Azura is establishing his might and telling everyone that anyone who causes trouble in his territory will die regardless of who they are. I reckon we're next. Yi Wanwan frowned. She felt something was off still. That man had to be Si Yihan. She lived 2 lives, there was no way she couldn't recognize her bedmate. President Fearless, Si Yihan suddenly turned to Yi Wanwan and apathetically called out. Yi Wanwan turned to the man with a severe glint in her eyes and frankly said, Lord Azura, our Fearless Alliance won't pay tributes. Like I said before, perhaps I might consider it if your Azura pays tributes to my Fearless Alliance every month instead. Why aren't you paying? Si Yihan asked. Why? Not paying was not paying, why would there be a why? My Fearless Alliance's financial state has been declining recently. I don't have any profits myself, yet you want me to give you a tribute? Yi Wanwan sneered and found a random excuse. Today, she wanted to test whether this man was Si Yihan or not. If he wasn't Si Yihan, Lord Azura wouldn't allow this kind of attitude. Chapter 1413 Yi Wanwan never intended to pay the tribute ever since she accepted Lord Azura's invitation. Especially after seeing Lord Azura's looks which were identical to Si Yihan's, an insuppressible rage swelled up inside her heart. He clearly had Si Yihan's face but looked at her like a stranger and didn't have any holes, it was as though he didn't know her. Why does Azura deserve to obtain any tributes from my Fearless Alliance? Yi Wanwan snorted while staring at Lord Azura. A cold glint flashed through Jiang Yan's eyes, but Lord Azura didn't say anything, so he didn't dare to do anything. All the leaders looked at Yi Wanwan with sneers. This president of the Fearless Alliance dared to speak so insolently despite being in Lord Azura's territory, she was probably desperate to go and reincarnate. The Yen family was also inwardly sneering. Lord Azura didn't take action against her yet, but the president was seeking death of her own accord. Continue, Si Yihan said lightly while looking at Yi Wanwan, not looking angered. Back then, our Fearless Alliance fought openly with Azura already, and you were defeated by our Fearless Alliance. Yet, a loser like you deliriously wishes to gain profits from the Fearless Alliance? Who gave Azura the courage? Yi Wanwan disdainfully said. Everyone looked at each other wordlessly. The president of the Fearless Alliance truly knew how to gild her face. Many years ago, many forces in the independent state teamed up together to attack Azura, not the Fearless Alliance alone. Moreover, Azura wasn't defeated miserably. Yet, through President Fearless' mouth, it sounded like the Fearless Alliance singly challenged Azura and defeated Azura. She was clearly trying to anger Lord Azura on purpose, right? Lord Azura. Since President Fearless dares to be so presumptuous and is shooting her mouth off today, if we allow her to leave today, we'd be returning a tiger to her den. We can't spare her. Yan Yun stepped forward and hastily said while looking at Si Yihan. Si Yihan's bone-chilling gaze languidly landed on Yan Yun and said aloofly, "Do you have the right to speak here?" Yan Yun was startled. Her face was incredulous. Didn't father tell her that Lord Azura would marry her? Moreover, she'd been flaunting herself as Lord Azura's wife while he was gone and could mobilize a portion of Azura's forces. Patriarch Yen walked forward at once and chuckled. "Lord Azura, did you forget? This is my daughter, Yan Yun." Si Yihan glanced at Patriarch Yen. "What does your daughter have to do with me?" A commotion erupted in the venue. Hadn't the Yen family claimed they were in-laws with Azura all along? But Lord Azura. Lord Azura. Back then, didn't my father, the previous patriarch, tell you to marry Yan Yun? Soon after, you left. Now that you've returned, this marriage, Patriarch Yen said. Si Yihan waved his hand and interrupted him coldly, "You're saying it was your father who discussed it with me?" "Yes," Patriarch Yen nodded. "Then tell your father to come and talk to me," Si Yihan replied. Ah, Patriarch Yen and everyone from the Yen family instantly froze. The previous patriarch passed away many years ago. How could he reappear to converse with Lord Azura? Chapter 1414, 1414, Jiang Yen. Si Yihan turned to the red-haired man. The red-haired man walked towards Si Yihan. "I heard that part of Azura's forces were ordered by the Yen family while I was gone these past years. Is that true?" Si Yihan's voice was cold like a millennium-old glacier, sending people's hearts shuddering. "Yes, Yan Yun of the Yen family claimed to be your wife, and the Yen family continued to assert that their previous patriarch discussed marriage with you. Some of Azura's members believed it and were controlled and ordered by Yan Yun," the red-haired man answered honestly. "And," Si Yihan said indifferently, "severely punish those people." "I understand." The red-haired man nodded. Patriarch Yen, Yan Yun, and their group were all rooted to their spots. This wasn't what they expected at all. Si Yihan didn't look at the Yen family at all and turned to Yi Wanwan again. He was about to speak when a leader stood up and said while cupping his fists, "Lord Azura, President Fearless is insolent in her speech and disrespected you. She should be punished by death." However, Si Yihan was nonchalant and coldly said, "Victories and failures are common in military affairs. I did lose tragically back then. President Fearless merely spoke the truth." Ah, the leaders were incredulous. Wasn't this going too far in, telling a barefaced lie? When did Azura lose? Even if they were defeated under the attack of many factions. They didn't lose to the Fearless Alliance alone. Yi Wanwan pensively surveyed the man on the throne, both angry and annoyed. If he wasn't Si Yihan, why would he be so lenient? If he was Si Yihan, why didn't he acknowledge her? Even if he didn't acknowledge her on the spot, he could definitely give her a hint with his intelligence. Even a look would be good. He shouldn't treat her like a stranger and not react at all. Unless, he was purposefully pretending to not know her. President Fearless. Si Yihan suddenly turned to Yi Wanwan. "Speak." Yi Wanwan's voice was a bit cold. "Since you came today, your tribute can't lack a single cent every month," Si Yihan said. "You'll only make my Fearless Alliance pay tributes to your Azura if I die," Yi Wanwan snapped brusquely. Seven Star and Big Dipper were surprised. Wasn't this too much? They could escape after causing enough trouble. If they continued like this, it wouldn't be fun. However, Yi Wanwan didn't care about that. She stared at Si Yihan and coolly said, "What? My Fearless Alliance has always been like this, we've never been afraid of anyone. Even if the Heavenly Emperor came, we'd act the same to him, let alone you." Si Yihan was silent for a moment before saying, "Give me a reason for Fearless Alliance not paying tributes." Yi Wanwan blurted, "I told you already. The Fearless Alliance is very poor, we don't have any money. Several leaders chortled when they heard that. One of them pointed at Yi Wanwan and said, "Utter nonsense. Your fearless alliance is the most lawless force in the entire independent state. Theft, robbery, murder, arson, plunder, there's nothing that the fearless alliance won't do. If your fearless alliance is poor, there's probably no one who's rich in the independent state." Bullshit. Big Dipper pointed at that person and cursed. "Don't spout nonsense if you don't know jack shit about my fearless alliance. My fearless alliance does everything, but we've never committed theft. The fearless alliance is rather good at murder, arson, and plundering though." Yi Wanwan was exasperated and wished nothing more than to slap Big Dipper to death. Why's his chest so puffed up? What's there to be proud of? Chapter 14-15. Since it's like that, Si Yihan looked at Yi Wanwan but pointed at Patriarch Yan. The Yan family will be responsible for the Fearless Alliance's tributes every month from now on. Everyone froze, astonishment on their faces. What did it have to do with the Yan family? Patriarch Yan stared at Si Yihan in shock. He thought he heard wrong, but when he saw identical expressions on Yan Yun and other people's faces, he hastily said to Si Yihan, "Lord Azura, what do you mean? Why is my Yan family paying for the Fearless Alliance's tribute? What kind of insane logic was this? They were completely unrelated to the Fearless Alliance, so why did they have to pay for the Fearless Alliance's tribute?" Si Yihan replied indifferently, "Many years ago, the Yan family had multiple business dealings with the Fearless Alliance, and the Yan family owes a large sum of money to the Fearless Alliance. Am I correct?" 7-Star frowned slightly upon hearing that. If it weren't for Lord Azura mentioning this matter, he would have forgotten about it already. Before President Fearless disappeared, she did have multiple business dealings with the Yan family, and the Yan family owed the Fearless Alliance a large unpaid debt after their last deal. However, President Fearless disappeared, and the Yan family ratted on this debt and didn't mention it again. Even when the Fearless Alliance urged them multiple times, the Yan family dismissed it with all sorts of excuses and was unwilling to repay the debt back to the Fearless Alliance. This matter was the talk of the town back then, so Lord Azura naturally knew about it. "You shameless old fart. You owe our Fearless Alliance so much money but won't even mention a lick of it. If Lord Azura didn't bring it up, I nearly would have forgotten," Big Dipper loudly shouted as he pointed at Patriarch Yan. Patriarch Yan's face flushed red, and he turned resentful. What did Lord Azura mean? Their debt to the Fearless Alliance was many years ago. What was the point in bringing it up now? Moreover, that was their own business with the Fearless Alliance, so what did it have to do with Azura? Even if Lord Azura couldn't obtain tributes from Fearless Alliance, it didn't mean he could deduct it from them. Patriarch Yan was unwilling to accept it and said to Si Yihan, "Lord Azura, isn't your decision unjust? More than that, this is a private matter between the Yan family and the Fearless Alliance." Patriarch Yan's implications were obvious. This was private business, so Azura and Lord Azura had no right to manage it, especially since they were a faction subordinate to Azura. An indescribable chilly glint appeared in Si Yihan's enchanting eyes as he slowly turned to Patriarch Yan and asked aloofly, "Are you questioning me?" Si Yihan's words, along with his bone-chilling gaze, caused Patriarch Yan to tremble and sweat to soak his forehead. Only then did Patriarch Yan realize who he was speaking to. His infuriated mind gradually cleared, and Patriarch Yan frantically shook his head. No, Lord Azura, that's not what I meant. I didn't intend to question you at all, Lord Azura. I just... Forget it." In the end, Patriarch Yan sighed and was forced to suffer in silence. "Since the Yan family has no objections, you will do as I said and pay the Fearless Alliance's tribute in their place until you finish paying off your debt," Si Yihan said as he looked away. Chapter 14-16. The members of the Yan family were fuming with anger, but no one dared to doubt Lord Azura's decision. In the end, they furiously glanced at Yi Wanwan, Big Dipper, and 7-Star and placed the blame on the Fearless Alliance. At the same time, in a certain corner of the manor, Lin K furtive peeked out his head like a thief and watched the ongoing events. When he saw how Si Yihan was biased beyond limits, he was rendered speechless and couldn't help but stand in silent tribute for the Yen family. The Yen family could have offended anyone but just had to offend Yuanwan. How could his ninth brother attack anyone else but them? The most suicidal part was that Yen Yun actually dared to call herself Madame Azura. Inside the manor, Big Dipper looked at Yuanwan in surprise and quietly asked, "Sis Feng. You don't also have a thing with Lord Azura, right? Otherwise, why would he help us like that?" Yuanwan's lips twitched when she heard that, and she wished nothing more than to whip Big Dipper to death. However, Yuanwan didn't have the presence of mind to waste her words on Big Dipper. Her whole mind and attention were focused on Lord Azura. Si Yihan looked at Yuanwan a moment later and asked, "Do you have any objections to this solution, President Fearless?" Yuanwan opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but ended up squeezing out, "No." After all, Lord Azura had already handled the matter to this extent. Although the Fearless Alliance had to pay a tribute, it had nothing to do with the Fearless Alliance in reality. The money for this tribute would be paid by the Yen family every month and was unrelated to the Fearless Alliance. Alright. Si Yihan looked at everyone else at the venue and apathetically asked, "Does anyone have any objections?" Everyone looked at each other, bewildered. Who'd dare to have any objections? They originally wanted to watch how miserable President Fearless would end up, but who would expect the Fearless Alliance to come out completely unharmed while the Yen family suffered a large misfortune? It was only after seeing everyone's silence that Si Yihan looked away. Then he coolly said, "Let's talk about the Yen family's matter now that we've dealt with the tributes." The Yen family's matter, an odd expression crept over everyone's faces. What other matter did the Yen family have? After I left, Yen Yun of the Yen family pretended to be my wife and mobilized Azura's power and members multiple times to clear away obstructions to the Yen family, Si Yihan dryly stated. There wasn't a hint of rage in his voice, but it sent chills into people's hearts. Jiang Yen. Si Yihan turned to the red-haired man. Jiang Yen stepped forward. How should I deal with this matter? Si Yihan asked. Yen Yun of the Yen family pretended to be Madame Azura and audaciously mobilized Azura's power. According to Azura's principles, the Yen family should be eliminated, but this was the sole doing of Yen Yun and is unrelated to the other members of the Yen family. Hence, Yen Yun should be killed, the red-haired man said. Yen Yun's face turned ghastly pale, disbelief filling her face. Yes, Si Yihan agreed indifferently. I'll leave it in your hands then. Then Si Yihan stood up and left this place under the protection of many Azura members. Ah! Lord Azura. This is a misunderstanding. Patriarch Yen collapsed onto the ground like a slab of slime. Soon, before anyone could react, the red-haired man struck Yen Yun with his palm and took away her life. Azura utterly disregarded the Yen family. Even if the Yen family bore hatred toward them for this, it wouldn't even cause Azura to itch. Chapter 1417. 1417. Upon seeing Lord Azura about to leave the manor before she discovered anything, Yuanwan became anxious. Big Dipper, I have something to do. I'll leave the rest to you. Yuanwan immediately chased after Lord Azura. Huh? Sis Feng. Sis Feng. Hey, where are you going? Big Dipper called out, but Yuanwan's figure had disappeared into the distance already. Sis Feng isn't planning to cause trouble by herself, right? Big Dipper scratched his head with confusion. With Sis Feng's personality, she definitely hadn't caused enough trouble yet. My lord, do we need to deal with the Yen family? The red-haired man, Jiang Yen, asked Si Yihan with a small frown and reverent expression. Since Lord Azura treated the Yen family so ruthlessly today, he probably provoked resentful feelings in the Yen family. Although the Yen family was like a bunch of ants to Azura, the red-haired man believed that eliminating weeds by their roots was best. Si Yihan's features were dark, and he tugged his collar with an impatient expression upon hearing that. He waved his hand and said, "No need. You can leave." The red-haired man wanted to say something else but sharply detected the danger and irritability in his lord's state, so he didn't dare to say anything and nodded slightly. Then he left with everyone else in tow. At the same time, Yi Wanwan had secretly followed them and was hiding near Lord Azura's group. Unfortunately, she couldn't clearly hear what they were saying. She saw Lord Azura waving his hand and the other people retreating. When she saw that only Lord Azura was left, her eyes brightened. Good opportunity. Si Yihan abruptly relaxed like a bow pulled extremely taut whose arrow finally left the dock. All his vitality seemed to have been sucked out of him within seconds. His handsome brows were tightly locked together, and it looked like a layer of dense, gloomy fog that couldn't be dispersed was enveloping his features. After an indefinite amount of time passed, the dense fog eased a tinge. Si Yihan turned around, about to head to the residence deep inside the manor, when he detected something, shock flitting through his face. His back slowly turned stiff, and his relaxed expression suddenly tensed again. Yi Wanwan took advantage of this opportunity to be alone with Lord Azura and walked out from behind the bushes, leaves rustling beneath her feet. When the man saw the girl appearing in front of his eyes, his pupils evidently contracted. Yi Wanwan coughed lightly and started making conversation. Lord Azura. We meet again." Lord Azura's eyes locked onto the girl's face. His eyes were like the bottom of the ocean, secret currents rippling throughout, but they were all hidden in the fathomless ocean. The man's face was akin to the placid surface of a calm ocean, and all his turbulence was tightly suppressed. He indifferently glanced at her and asked, "Does President Bai need something?" Yi Wanwan didn't waste her words and directly said, "Lord Azura, can we speak somewhere?" After being in the independent state for so long, she never expected to personally meet a man who looked identical to Si Yihan in this kind of situation. Moreover, this man was the legendary Lord Azura. No matter what, she had to get to the bottom of this matter today. Lord Azura didn't say anything and silently walked forward. That was considered tacit agreement, right? Yi Wanwan hurriedly followed him. Chapter 14:18 When Lin Ke, who was hiding, saw Si Yihan leave, he was going to talk to him. Who knew he would see Yi Wanwan run into Si Yihan when he was about to go over? And so, he hastily slammed on the brakes and hid again while cautiously following them. Yi Wanwan followed Lord Azura into a study. Lin Ke quickly hid by the doors and leaned toward the door crack. After Si Yihan entered the room, he sat down on the broad leather chair behind the desk and peered up at her with an apathetic expression. "Do you need something, President Bai? Please speak frankly." When Yi Wanwan met his indifferent expression, a familiar twitching pain plagued her heart again. If it wasn't convenient to speak earlier due to the presence of people earlier, there was no reason for him to pretend not to recognize her now, right? Yi Wanwan took a deep breath and calmed herself down. She chuckled lightly and said, "Lord Azura really looks like a friend of mine, so I'm extremely curious." The man expressionlessly replied, "There are many similar-looking people in this world." Yi Wanwan narrowed her eyes slightly. "Oh. Is that so? Then if I may ask you, Lord Azura, why did you keep defending the Fearless Alliance back at the manor? Isn't your elbow about to break from how outwardly you're twisting it one?" The man glanced at her calmly. "As long as I achieve my goal, the process isn't important. After the Yen family finishes paying off their debt, the Fearless Alliance's tribute will still need to be paid on time every month." In other words, his objective today was to collect tributes and money. Anything would do as long as he collected the money. When Yi Wanwan saw the man's flawless facade, the small flame in her heart ignited with a roar. Is this guy freaking flaunting his acting skills with me? They look the exact same. I'd only believe his nonsense if I was blind. Yi Wanwan naturally wouldn't believe him that easily. "Fine. You want to flaunt your acting skills, right? I've never been afraid of anyone when it comes to flaunting acting skills." Yi Wanwan idly walked toward the study step by step. Then, what if I don't have any money and refuse to pay? Yi Wanwan reached the study by the time she finished speaking. She supported herself with both hands on the desk and leaned forward, pressing closer toward him. Si Yihan looked up at the girl who was an arm's length away from him. He only needed to reach out, and he would be able to embrace her. President Bai can try, Si Yihan icily said. When she heard his threat, she cast her head down, her fingers slowly clenching. In the next second, she suddenly looked up, her bright and beautiful eyes brimming with enticing happiness. Her voice was languid as she stressed every word. Is that so? Yi Wanwan bent down abruptly and leaned closer to the man's ears, leaving only millimeters between them. Accompanied by her gentle breaths, her voice rang next to his ear, Lord Azura, I definitely don't have the money. How about I give myself up as collateral to you? The man's back grew extremely taut in an instant, and his eyes turned so dark that there wasn't a ray of light. When Lin Kei saw this scene from behind the door, he nearly exclaimed in shock and hastily clutched his mouth. Shit, shit, shit. This girl is too crafty. Absolutely too crafty. She resorted to this trick. Who knows whether Ninth Brother can resist it? For some reason, he pitied Ninth Brother a lot suddenly. Yi Wanwan chuckled lightly and cheerfully looked at him with hints of provocation in her eyes. Yes, she was forcing him to reveal a crack. Chapter 14:19 The girl's cunning and provocative smile were simply like poison that eroded the city wall around his heart and nearly defeated him in an instant. Numbness tingled through Si Yihan's heart. He didn't know how he suppressed his desire to embrace and kiss her. A mere few seconds felt like several centuries had passed. So? Yi Wanwan asked. Si Yihan's gaze was cool and calm as he nonchalantly glanced at her. I never performed deficit transactions. When Yi Wanwan heard this, she froze for 3 seconds before utter disbelief filled her. Oh my god. She wanted to pay with her body and this guy actually said he would be suffering a loss. Even if you're good looking, even if I also think I would profit. It doesn't mean you're amazing just 'cause you're good looking. Yi Wanwan's eyes shot wide open. She was about to explode from fury and couldn't say anything but, you, for half a day. She straightened her body a moment later and uttered between gritted teeth, that's true. With your incomparable good looks, Lord Azura, I'd be the profiteer no matter how you looked at it. At the door, Lin Kei swallowed in amazement. He thought they'd be done for, but he had to bow down to Ninth Brother's self-control. Yi Wanwan simply couldn't figure out why Lord Azura and Si Yihan looked identical and were obviously the same person, yet he wouldn't recognize her or intend to reunite with her. She couldn't accept this at all. What also made her confused was that if Si Yihan really was Lord Azura and possessed such frightening power in the independent state, why did he return to China and take up position as the Si family's patriarch? It didn't make sense. Moreover, after Si Yihan returned to the independent state, didn't he know the Si family's catastrophe? Was he just going to ignore the Si family's matters? In truth, even when she first discovered everything, even when he left without a word, a thought lingered in her mind. She wanted to believe in him. However, this man's indifference and the way he looked at her like a stranger caused her desperately hopeful heart to chill completely. Yi Wanwan's fury finally reached its peak and erupted. She didn't want to speak in circles anymore and pointed at the man. Si Yihan, why did you leave without a word in China back then? Why did you pretend to not know me after seeing me today? It was as though Si Yihan was wearing an impenetrable mask on his face. He said detachedly, I'm afraid I don't quite understand President Bai's words. You don't understand? Yi Wanwan snorted. Si Yihan, why bother pretending in front of me? Do you dare to say you aren't Si Yihan? Si Yihan shook his head, calmness returning to his face. I understand. You understand? Yi Wanwan's brows furrowed slightly. The man nodded. President Bai has mistaken me for a friend of yours. However, I've lived in the independent state since I was born and have never gone to China. I do have a few friends who do business in China, but I'm afraid President Bai has got the wrong person. You've never been to China? Yuan stared into his eyes, wanting to find a flaw in his eyes. However, Si Yihan's unfathomable eyes didn't have a single ripple and looked like the placid surface of a lake. That's right, Si Yihan said. How coincidental then that there would be two identical-looking people in this world. What's more coincidental is that my friend is also in the independent state right now. Chapter 1420 Yuan suppressed her rage and coldly said, my friend's family turned into a mess, and he abandoned his wife, but he's having fun and enjoying himself in the independent state. What an utterly cursed imbecile. Am I right, Lord Azura? Si Yihan didn't immediately respond when he heard that. President Bai's friend is named Si Yihan said a moment later. That's right. His name is Si Yihan, Yuan answered. If I remember correctly, there's a faction called the Ancient Sea Clan in the independent state. Si Yihan's dark gaze landed on Yuan. There's a person named Si Yihan in the Sea Clan. Yuan's brows furrowed deeply when she heard that, not understanding his meaning. I've heard that Si Yihan of the Sea Clan does look very similar to me. The person who President Bai is looking for should be from the Sea Clan, not me, Si Yihan said aloofly. Yuan was a bit surprised. This man's words were identical to what nameless Nya and Taoist devotee said. According to Taoist devotee, there was a person named Si Yihan in the ancient Sea Clan. Yuan already suspected that Si Yihan from the Sea Clan was Ajio, but that suspicion abated after she saw Lord Azura today. Yet, Lord Azura said Si Yihan of the Sea Clan resembled him a lot. Could it be that it was Si Yihan of the Sea Clan who was Ajio? And Lord Azura seriously only looked identical to Ajio by coincidence? But no matter how she looked at him, everything was the same except for his hair color. Lord Azura nonchalantly said, it's understandable that President Bai mistook me, someone else from the ancient Sea Clan also mistook me before. Are you telling the truth? Yuan was half in belief and half in doubt after listening to his reasonable words. It was truthfully rather simple. If Lord Azura was telling the truth, she merely needed to head to the ancient Sea Clan and look for that Si Yihan. There's no reason for me to lie to you, Si Yihan dryly said. However, I heard that Si Yihan went to China a few days ago. If President Bai is looking for him, you should head to China instead. Yuan frowned deeply. That was easier said than done. How could she return to China? Firstly, she didn't have a permit. Secondly, she didn't have any travel documents. She would probably be detained by another country's customs before she even approached China. Moreover, even if she wanted to return to China right now, there was no way she could leave under the close watch of those old geezers from the Fearless Alliance. How do you know Si Yihan from the ancient Sea Clan went to China? Yuan asked. Just hearsay, he answered softly. Which means you didn't see it yourself and aren't certain. Yuan stared at him. You could say that, Si Yihan said. Alright, then I'll go to the ancient Sea Clan and look for him there. If Si Yihan of the ancient Sea Clan is really who I'm looking for, I'll definitely bring him here and personally thank you together. Yuan had no choice but to go along with Lord Azura since he said that. No matter how Yuan tested this man, his expression remained calm. Even if Yuan went to the ancient Sea Clan, there was no way she would find Si Yihan since he didn't have plans to return to the Sea Clan anytime soon. As long as Yuan didn't find Si Yihan from the ancient Sea Clan, she would definitely listen to his words and think Si Yihan returned to China. That way, Yuan would also return to China, and his objective would be accomplished. However, I have to remind President Bai of something, Si Yihan said aloofly, not just anyone can enter the ancient clans of the independent state. You won't need to worry about that. Yuan intently stared at the man in front of her as she said that. If Si Yihan was really acting, then he was truly marked by the company he kept, performing more outstanding than an expert. Chapter 1421 Yuan rubbed her chin and thought, if Lord Azura lied, I'll just come back and find him. If he didn't die and Si Yihan of the ancient Sea clan looks similar to him, it will prove that Si Yihan of the ancient Sea clan is the true Ajio, and Lord Azura's looks are a mere coincidence. However, although there weren't any holes in this man's words, Yi Wanwan still had lingering doubts. Sometimes, a woman's sixth sense didn't require any logic. What was woeful was her instincts alone were useless. This man was impervious and didn't have any flaws to exploit. Yi Wanwan stared at his expressionless face. For some reason, she dismally felt like she was an old wave that was being driven forward by a new wave and dying upon reaching a beach. Each new generation truly surpassed the previous one. However, old ginger is spicier than young ginger. She refused to give up so easily. Yi Wanwan gathered her thoughts and picked up a pen and a piece of paper from the desk, swiftly jotting down her phone number on the paper. Then she slid the note into the chest pocket of the man's suit and smiled faintly. This is my number. If Lord Azura regrets declining my suggestion about the tribute just now, you can contact me at any time. The man subconsciously glanced down at the hand on his chest and didn't say anything, but the imperceptible arc of his eyes revealed a trace of its owner's emotions. After stuffing him with her number, Yi Wanwan clapped her hands and stood up with a wave of her hand. Then I'll see you again someday. It appeared she wouldn't obtain any results today. She had ample time though, and it wasn't like he could run away. She first needed to think of a way to go to the ancient Sea clan and investigate. Yi Wanwan turned to leave. However, the man also stood up immediately and followed her. Lord Azura, why are you following me? Could it be that you regret it already? Yi Wanwan turned around and looked at the man behind her with a slight raise of her brows. If I didn't escort President Bai, I'm afraid it'd be very difficult for President Bai to leave this place, the man replied. Yi Wanwan shrugged and didn't speak further, allowing the man to catch up so they could walk side by side. Lord Azura, that Si Yihan from the ancient Sea clan really looks similar to you? Yi Wanwan asked again as she walked. The man walked very slowly and casually walked with her. When he heard her, he repeated, "There's no need for me to lie to you." The man paused briefly and continued, "President Fearless, the Fearless Alliance has been leaderless for many years and has quite a number of factions now, so you need to be prudent. Lord Azura seems to be very concerned about me." Yi Wanwan glanced at him. The man aloofly said, "I merely admire President Bai's capabilities and courage." Yi Wanwan, admire my capabilities and courage to cause trouble and insult Azura? The duo reached the entrance to the manor. Yi Wanwan was about to say something when a fleet of cars rapidly arrived and dozens of cars surrounded the manor in the blink of an eye. The leading, luxurious car stopped near Si Yihan and Yi Wanwan. Skeleton opened his door before courteously opening the door for Ji Xiuran. The man, Ji Xiuran, exited the car and slowly walked toward them. He was wearing an elegant light gray suit and had a faint smile on his lips. Ji Xiuran. Yi Wanwan was startled when she recognized the man getting out of the car. Shit! Isn't this Emperor Ji? Why did he come? Chapter 1422, Who dares to act so insolently here? The red-haired man, Jiang Yan, suddenly walked out of the manor. None of your business. Skeleton stepped forward immediately. You want to die? In a flash, Jiang Yan shot toward Skeleton. Crash! An explosive sound resounded as Jiang Yan's palm clashed with Skeleton's palm, and they both staggered back a few steps simultaneously. Skeleton and Jiang Yan met each other's eyes, shock apparent. Skeleton, withdraw, Ji Xiuran lightly called as he looked at Skeleton. Yes, Skeleton answered and immediately retreated. Jiang Yan, Lord Azura also called out indifferently from his spot next to Yi Wanwan. Jiang Yan nodded and retreated to the side. A faint and harmless smile stayed firm on Ji Xiuran's lips. He first glanced at Yi Wanwan before turning to the man next to her. You must be Lord Azura, the one whose name reverberates throughout the independent state. Ji Xiuran, Lord Azura's gaze also landed on Ji Xiuran. It looked like it was about to rain. Dark clouds shrouded the sky above them and cold winds sent dust fluttering in the air. The temperature around them plummeted in an instant, causing Yuanwan to reflexively rub her arms and shiver. "Ha!" Ji Shuran chuckled lightly. "I didn't expect Lord Azura to have heard of my humble name. What an honor." The man's immortal-like looks were akin to perpetually frozen ice, and his pitch-black eyes didn't have a hint of warmth. "May I ask what advice Emperor Ji wants to give by coming here today?" Ji Shuran looked at Yuanwan and smiled faintly as he said, "I wouldn't dare to give any advice. I merely came by to pick up my fiancé." Yuanwan. Yuanwan didn't know if it was her imagination, but she felt like Lord Azura's icy face seemed to crack for a second when he heard Emperor Ji's words. While Yuanwan wondered whether she saw things wrong, a thought sparked in her mind. This is a good opportunity. Since Emperor Ji suddenly came here, perhaps she could take advantage of this opportunity. Si Yihan had a terrifying possessiveness and his jealousy could submerge the entire independent state. She didn't believe he could remain unperturbed if she cheated on him in front of him. Yuanwan immediately pattered toward Ji Shuran's side and intimately looped her arm around his arm. That's right. He's my fiancé. He came to pick me up." When Ji Shuran saw her taking the initiative to get close to him on this rare occasion, he sent a fleeting glance at his arm being held. Meanwhile, Yuanwan kept observing Lord Azura's reaction while speaking. Opposite of them, his tall, lone figure stood in front of the manor's giant decoratively carved iron door with downcast eyes. Since the sky was a bit dark, his expression couldn't be clearly seen. An unknown amount of time passed and Yuanwan's heart had nearly raised to her throat when he slowly looked up. His brows were wickedly arched up while the curve of his lips evoked an inexplicable sense of danger. He first glanced at Yuanwan before turning to Ji Shuran and saying slowly, "Is that so? Then does Emperor Ji know that your fiancé casually gives her private number to strange men and even tries to shit?" Yuanwan's eyes shot open and felt like a stampede of horses trampled through her heart. This guy actually sold me out. Chapter 1423. Yuanwan automatically looked at Ji Shuran and saw Ji Shuran's eyes turning a few degrees cooler. "Fine. You win." Yuanwan ruthlessly glared at the man across from them and hastily explained to Ji Shuran. "That, was for business collaboration. I left my number purely for business collaboration. I didn't do anything to him." Shit, she was better off not explaining. Why did it feel like she dug herself a bigger hole with her explanation? But the problem was that she really didn't do anything. She merely wanted to test him, so why did she feel so guilty? Business collaboration? Dangerous mockery flitted through his eyes when Si Yihan saw her anxiously explaining herself. An eerie, bone-chilling coldness enveloped heaven and earth, and he felt like something was about to break free of its cage. When Yuanwan saw his ill-boding expression, she felt an overflowing sense of danger. It's over. Her current identity was Bro Flattop, Ji Shuran's fiancé. If this man said anything he shouldn't say and allowed Emperor Ji to know she privately went to seduce Lord Azura, she would have a volcanic eruption on her hands. Yuanwan was facing a crisis she'd never encountered before in her acting career. This was truly the embodiment of the saying, "Go for wool and come back shorn." Yuanwan ran around in circles from panic and in the end, she had no choice but to play pitiful. She pitifully peered at the man across from her. "Boss. I was wrong. I beg you to not expose me." Si Yihan felt like the turbulent emotions in his chest were about to explode, but when he saw her pitiful and pleading expression, the roaring beast that was about to charge out of its cage instantly felt its eyes softening, his fingers clenched as his eyes swept over Yuanwan's face. "Then I won't send you off further." He promptly turned around and re-entered the manor. Yuanwan relaxed dramatically when she saw his retreating figure. She clearly wanted to force him to reveal a flaw, but why did she end up being the one who almost exposed herself? It's too cruel. But she thankfully dodged disaster. Although there didn't seem to be anything amiss with Lord Azura's words just now, and he was probably trying to unsettle her at most, it actually elicited a feeling of strangeness in her. Ji Xiuran pensively glanced at her when she saw her intently looking in the direction Lord Azura went. Xiao Feng, let's go. Oh, okay, Yi Wanwan nodded frantically. She had to go back sooner and figure out a way to infiltrate the ancient Sea clan as soon as possible. Some distance away from them, Si Yihan watched as his girl entered Ji Xiuran's car and the car disappeared from his sight. His expression was darker than it had ever been. There was some rustling nearby as Lin Ke, who'd secretly watched the whole thing, peeked out his head and timidly asked, Ninth brother, are you okay? Just as he finished speaking, blood spilled out from the corner of Si Yihan's mouth, causing his dark face to be more chilly and terrifying. Ninth brother. Lin Ke was spooked out of his mind. Shit. He was so angry that he spat blood out. Well, it looks like there's no way he's okay. Lin Ke couldn't help but shiver as he stood next to Si Yihan and saw his frosty gaze. Chapter 1424. It couldn't be helped though, since his ninth brother personally witnessed his precious wife getting in another man's car. Ninth brother, why don't you just bluntly admit your identity? Lin Ke grumbled, unable to bear it anymore. Si Yihan was silent for a moment before saying, if I admit my identity, she won't leave the independent state. How dangerous would it be for Yi Wanwan to stay in the independent state? Moreover, he just confirmed that Yi Wanwan hadn't recovered her memories, so her situation would only be more dangerous in this kind of situation. Ninth brother, then why did you tell Yi Wanwan about Si Yihan of the ancient Sea clan? What were your intentions? Lin Ke didn't understand why his ninth brother exposed his own alias. I told her about the ancient Sea clan to erase her suspicions about me, Si Yihan replied. Moreover, she would eventually discover that identity of his. Perhaps she already discovered his identity in the ancient Sea clan. He told Yi Wanwan there was someone named Si Yihan who looked like him in the ancient Sea clan, so she would definitely think that Si Yihan of the ancient Sea clan was him. Moreover, the ancient Sea clan and Si Yihan truly existed, so no issues would arise even if she looked into it. Lin Ke said thoughtfully, so ninth brother, your objective was to make Si Yihan think Si Yihan of the ancient Sea clan is the true you. At that time, you only need to return to the Sea clan and inform them to tell anyone looking into Si Yihan that he went back to China, ninth brother. After obtaining this information, Yi Wanwan will definitely believe it and think you really returned to China. Then she'll leave the independent state and return to China. Lin Ke gave Si Yihan a giant thumbs up. Ninth brother, clever, truly clever. Even the higher-ups of the Sea clan don't know Lord Azura is Si Yihan. This way, the lie would be seamless. Ah, ninth brother is truly putting in some painstaking effort. Si Yihan didn't respond to Lin Quebec. He merely didn't want Yi Wanwan to stay in this troublesome place, the independent state. Moreover, he had just returned to the independent state and regrouped Azura, so he wasn't currently strong enough to ensure her safety. Even he himself was taking a great risk. China was different though. China was an extremely powerful country, and the independent state's power couldn't seep into China, so it was much safer. Ninth brother. Say, how did Yi Wanwan become the president of the Fearless Alliance? Isn't this too strange? Lin Ke's brows knitted in confusion. Si Yihan himself couldn't understand it, let alone Lin Quebec. Si Yihan knew Yi Wanwan was indeed a member of the Fearless Alliance many years ago, but how did she suddenly turn around and transform into the president of the Fearless Alliance, by phone, today? Additionally, Yi Wanwan hadn't recovered any of her memories. Si Yihan was contemplative. Back then, Yi Wanwan didn't reveal her identity when she met him, so he automatically thought Yi Wanwan was a normal member of the Fearless Alliance. When linked with the time by phone, the president of the Fearless Alliance went missing. Perhaps Yi Wanwan was by phone to begin with. Back then, Yuanwan thought he was a small leader in Azura, and he also thought Yuanwan was a small leader in the Fearless Alliance. In other words, both the leader of Azura and the Fearless Alliance thought the other was an unknown nobody. Lin Ke was shocked when he heard Si Yihan's hypothesis and asked incredulously, "Shit. Ninth brother, isn't this too absurd?" Chapter 1425. Si Yihan shook his head. "It's only speculation, we don't know the truth. Unless Yuanwan recovered her memories, everything would be a mystery. Ninth brother, what should we do now?" Yuanwan ran off with Emperor Ji. Lin Ke propped his chin up, adopting a thinking look. "Send someone to watch them." Si Yihan turned and left. Lin Ke nodded. They had to watch them. After all, someone else taking advantage of a lapse was the most fatal. You can tell Emperor Ji is a real piece of work. He's the emperor of Europe's underground syndicates and controls the entire underground empire in Europe. Plus, he's also the heir of the Ji family, one of the 4 great clans. As for his looks, they're passable, but he's too enticing to women. "Ah, ninth brother, wait for me." The blabbering Lin Ke immediately chased after Si Yihan upon seeing him leave. At the same time, at the headquarters of the Martial Arts Union, inside the Grand Hall, several elders of the Union sat on the side and looked at the man above them. President Fearless and Lord Azura have met already, but nothing seemed to have happened," an elder said while looking at the man's back. A moment later, the man slowly turned around with a glass of red wine, the color of blood, in his hand. His fingers gently swirled the glass as perverted lunacy surfaced in his eyes. Is that so? They finally met. Then, this game has just begun. If Yuanwan was there and saw the president of the Martial Arts Union, she would definitely be shocked out of her mind. She would never expect to be so familiar with the president's face. The elders looked at the man with smiles on their faces. The man before them was the Martial Arts Union's current president. "President, there's one thing I don't understand." An elder looked at the man and asked, "Azura and the Fearless Alliance are insignificant to the Martial Arts Union, so why does the president want the Fearless Alliance to come into contact with Azura? Do you really want to see the Fearless Alliance's attitude toward Azura, or was your purpose something else?" The man sardonically smiled and said, "I have my purpose." Since the president said that, the elders nodded and didn't say anything else. At the same time, as Yuanwan sat inside Emperor Ji's car, thousands of emotions coursed through her body. She never would have expected today's situation. One of them had to do with Lord Azura, and the other had to do with Si Yihan of the ancient Sea clan. Whether it was the information revealed by Lord Azura or the information given by nameless Nya and Taoist devotee, Si Yihan of the Sea clan was the one most likely to be Ajio. Of course, Yuanwan wasn't dumb. If Lord Azura was truly Si Yihan but didn't want to reunite with her, he'd definitely have a lot of reasons and excuses. After all, he was an adept expert at the technique of diverting one's attention. She had to keep testing Lord Azura and also had to closely look into the ancient Sea clan. There was no way she wouldn't find Si Yihan. "Next time, don't come to this kind of place," Ji Shuran said from his spot next to Yuanwan. Yuanwan was speechless when she heard that. It wasn't like she could control whether she went there. Ignoring the fact that the Martial Arts Union was watching her, Lord Azura also invited her. If she didn't come, she'd offend both sides. Of course, Yuanwan knew that her current identity was Emperor Ji's fiancé, so it would be better for her to be more compliant. Chapter 1426. Before Yuanwan could reply, Ji Shuran continued, "Back then, your Fearless Alliance attacked Azura and established a feud. Now, you dared to come to Lord Azura's territory all by yourself." "Yuanwan, how am I all by myself? Didn't I bring Big Dipper, 7 Star, and the Star Destroyer group?" Yuanwan automatically looked around her, her expression shifting at once. "I seem to have forgotten about Big Dipper, 7 Star, and the Star Destroyer group." Yi Wanwan didn't respond to Ji Shuran and immediately called Big Dipper. Sis Feng, you're too sneaky and ran off by yourself. Why did you sell us out? Thankfully, we escaped too. Curly wants money from us now. He wants a $10,000 protection fee. Soon, Big Dipper and Curly's arguing and negotiating voices were heard over the phone. After confirming they were fine, Yi Wanwan hung up. Ji Shuran's gaze landed on Yi Wanwan and he couldn't help but shake his head. A leopard never changes his spots. Yi Wanwan frowned. What does Ji Shuran mean? You're still you, just like back then. Although you've curbed a lot of the sharpness in your personality, your nature is still bold and daring, Ji Shuran said softly. Yi Wanwan furrowed her brows as she listened. There seemed to be something unsaid in Ji Shuran's words. Before Yi Wanwan could ask about it, Ji Shuran told Skeleton, return to the Ji estate. Hey, wait, take me back to the Fearless Alliance, Yi Wanwan said. Come home with me today. Ji Shuran's tone didn't allow for objections. Huh? Yi Wanwan's back grew taut immediately. Follow him home. It seemed reasonable for her to go to her fiancé's home, so Yi Wanwan had no reason to decline and was forced to agree. Okay, Yi Wanwan realized that attending Lord Azura's conference without Ji Shuran's permission seemed to have provoked his displeasure. It made sense though. This trip was truly dangerous. However, it wasn't a fruitless trip. If she hadn't gone, she wouldn't have discovered Lord Azura's similar appearance to Si Yihan or learned such detailed information about Si Yihan of the ancient Sea clan. After a long time, the car entered the Ji district. The Ji district was named after the Ji family, just like how the Nye family was located in the Nye district of the independent state. Yi Wanwan had known this for a while. When Yi Wanwan was about to fall asleep, the car finally stopped. What greeted her eyes was an estate that was so enormous that it extended beyond her vision. In front of the gates, two stone-carved dragons looked vividly alive. Each dragon was dozens of meters long and was overwhelmingly imposing. Yi Wanwan was rendered speechless at this sight. The Ji family probably owns mines, right? After Skeleton got out of the car, he opened the door for Yi Wanwan and Ji Shuran. Standing in front of the Ji estate, Yi Wanwan felt ashamed of her inferiority. There wouldn't be any harm if there weren't any comparisons. She couldn't understand filthy rich people whose families owned mines. Shuran. A young girl walked out of the Ji estate. The girl had hair that reached her waist and sweet looks with a pleasant demeanor. When the girl saw Yi Wanwan standing next to Ji Shuran, her brows furrowed slightly, and she asked, Shuran, this is? My friend, Ji Shuran answered aloofly. Friend? The girl was taken aback, even finding it incredulous. Ever since he was young, Ji Shuran had never had any female friends. He used to be close to Worryless Nye from the Nye family since childhood, but ever since Worryless Nye disappeared, there had never been another woman by Ji Shuran's side. Chapter 1427, 1427 Ji Shuran wasn't even fond of Nye Linglong from the Nye family, who frequently came to see him. That girl wasn't the only one. Yi Wanwan also froze in her spot. Am I not Ji Shuran's fiancé? Why did Ji Shuran call me his friend? Does this girl have some kind of relationship with Ji Shuran? This is Ji Lingfei, my elder sister, Ji Shuran explained to Yi Wanwan, as though he could tell what she was thinking. Yi Wanwan nodded. Ji Shuran actually had an elder sister. But isn't this relationship a little messy? Could it be that Ji Shuran's sister doesn't know I'm Ji Shuran's fiancé? Or was Bai Feng's relationship with Ji Shuran underground and it wasn't made public? Let's enter, Ji Shuran said lightly and led Yi Wanwan into the Ji estate before she could reply. Yi Wanwan and Ji Lingfei followed after Ji Shuran and swiftly entered the estate. After entering the estate, many servants of the Ji estate looked at Yi Wanwan in surprise. This was rather rare. Emperor Ji was famous for being impervious to female charms. This was his first time bringing a girl back to the Ji family. Soon, Ji Shuran led them into the living room. May I ask your name, sister? Ji Lingfei took a good look at Yi Wanwan. Since Ji Shuran brought this girl home, it proved that her relationship with Ji Shuran had to be unusual. Based on Yi Wanwan's looks, she was quite extraordinary. No wonder Ji Shuran hadn't visited the second miss of the Nye family, worryless Nye, after she returned. It turned out he had a beauty as a new paramour. Ji Lingfei instinctively felt great repulsion toward Yi Wanwan at once. Ji Shuran had a good relationship with worryless Nye since they were young, and their friendship hadn't changed despite the long years of separation. The entire Ji family, including the patriarch and madam of the Ji family, hoped for Ji Shuran to be with worryless Nye. Especially after worryless Nye returned to the Nye family, Madam Ji urged Ji Shuran to visit worryless Nye multiple times, but Ji Shuran didn't listen at all. When Yi Wanwan looked at Ji Shuran, she felt like she saw displeasure in Ji Shuran's sister's gaze for some reason. I'm Bai Feng, Yi Wanwan answered with a smile. No matter what, Ji Lingfei was Ji Shuran's real sister, so Yi Wanwan couldn't abandon her etiquette and manners, especially since she was visiting their home. What did you say? Ji Lingfei shot up instantly with a deep frown on her face as she stared at Yi Wanwan in disbelief. You're Bai Feng. Are you Bai Feng, the president of the Fearless Alliance? Ji Lingfei asked in agitation. Yi Wanwan nodded. Nonsense. Ji Shuran looked at Ji Shuran with a displeased expression. Shuran, do you want to anger dad and mom to death? What kind of power is the Fearless Alliance? They're notorious in the independent state, murder, arson, plunder, there isn't any evil they won't commit. Even several factions subordinate to our Ji family were destroyed by the Fearless Alliance. Yet you brought the president of the Fearless Alliance home today. Ji Lingfei was enraged, and her eyes were filled with disgust and disdain as she looked at Yi Wanwan. The leader of a bandit faction like that actually wanted to suck up to their Ji family now. Their Ji family still hadn't sought retribution from them for destroying the Ji family's subordinate factions. Could it be that her younger brother took a liking to this girl simply because she resembled Worryless? But, wasn't it Shuran himself who didn't like Worryless back then and wouldn't agree to marriage no matter what? Chapter 1428, I brought Xiao Feng back today because I'd like mom and dad to give Xiao Feng entry to the martial arts conference, Ji Shuran said aloofly. What did you say, entry to the martial arts conference? Give it to President Fearless? Ji Lingfei laughed from her anger. Ji Shuran, are you okay? Our Ji family only got a few of such valuable tickets, yet you want the Ji family to give one to President Fearless? Yi Wanwan sat some distance away with her brows raised, a pensive expression on her face. It appeared the Ji family really didn't know about Ji Shuran's relationship with Bai Feng. It also took her by surprise that Ji Shuran brought her back because of the martial arts conference that would be held soon. Yi Wanwan heard about this martial arts conference from Big Dipper. The independent state held the martial arts conference every 3 years. The martial arts conference was held by all the major ancient clans and the martial arts union, and the rules were different every year. If a person displayed outstanding performance during the conference, they could receive invitations from the great ancient clans and become their honored guests. Yi Wanwan wasn't clear about the exact circumstances of the martial arts conference. However, it was very difficult for a lawless faction like the Fearless Alliance to obtain entry to the martial arts conference. When the Fearless Alliance was first established, it received entries once, but the Fearless Alliance never obtained any more entries to the martial arts conference after that, so the value of an entry ticket could be imagined. Yi Wanwan originally didn't intend on participating in some martial arts conference, but after careful consideration, perhaps she could enter an ancient clan after obtaining entry to the martial arts conference. Perhaps she could find Si Yihan of the ancient Si clan. However, based on this situation, the Ji family didn't seem to welcome her and probably wouldn't give her entry. Yu Wanwan always thought the Ji family knew the president of the Fearless Alliance was Ji Shuran's fiancé, but it was only after coming to the Ji residence that she realized she was clearly overthinking. They had never seen Bai Feng, let alone acknowledged her or knew she was Ji Shuran's fiancé. Shuran, entertain President Bai for now. I'm going to see if Dad and Mom have returned yet, Ji Lingfei told Ji Shuran and left the living room. Ji Shuran turned to Yu Wanwan with an aloof smile on his face and gently said, "Don't worry. I brought you back today just for a casual meal." Yu Wanwan glanced at Ji Shuran. What relaxing words. Based on Ji Lingfei's attitude toward her though, Yu Wanwan could already guess his parents' attitude toward her. Ji Shuran also never told her about coming here to obtain entry to the martial arts conference, so she wasn't prepared in the slightest. Moments later, a stern-looking elderly man led an elegant and poised woman into the living room. Ji Lingfei followed them silently. When the elderly man and woman entered the room, their gazes landed on Yu Wanwan. The woman didn't conceal her apathetic attitude at all. "Father, Mother," Ji Shuran greeted them after standing up. Yu Wanwan also swiftly stood up. These two were the patriarch and madam of the Ji family, one of the four great clans of the independent state, and they were also Ji Shuran's parents, as well as her freebie parents-in-law. Madam Ji nodded and sat in the chief seat along with the elderly man. Then, she carefully examined Yu Wanwan. Chapter 1429, Shuran rarely brings girls home. Madam Ji looked at Yu Wanwan and chuckled lightly. "I heard from Lingfei that you are Bai Feng, the president of the Fearless Alliance." "Yes, Auntie," Yu Wanwan replied while looking back at the elegant and poised woman. "Oh. I've heard of the Fearless Alliance's great name. It even destroyed a power that was subordinate to our Ji family back then," Madam Ji said detachedly. Yu Wanwan became slightly embarrassed upon hearing that. What kind of sin had Bai Feng committed? "Sit, President Bai, don't be polite," Patriarch Ji said to Yu Wanwan. "Okay." Yu Wanwan sat down and realized she forgot to bring a gift even though she was visiting their home for the first time. "Shuran, I've told you already that Worryless has returned to the Nya family already, yet you have all sorts of excuses every time I tell you to visit her. Don't you know you're going to hurt Worryless' feelings like this?" Madam Ji said as she turned to Ji Shuran. "Worryless Nya," Yu Wanwan was surprised when she heard Madam Ji's words. Wasn't Worryless Nya the missing second sister of Nameless Nya and the biological mother of Tang Tang? Based on what Madam Ji said though, did Ji Shuran have something going on with Worryless Nya? But Worryless Nya had even birthed a child. Baby Tang Tang's biological father couldn't be Ji Shuran, right? However, Yu Wanwan thought it wasn't possible. After all, if Ji Shuran was baby Tang Tang's father, Nameless Nya would have known. On another thought, an unreliable pit digger like Nameless Nya might really not know. How could you rely on a dunce's intelligence? The two dunces of the independent state, Nameless Nya and Big Dipper, were idiotic to the bones already. If Ji Shuran and Worryless Nya had a relationship and had Tang Tang, and he still pursued Bai Feng, wasn't Ji Shuran too much of a freaking jerk? An utter, complete piece of scum. Before Ji Shuran could respond, Patriarch Ji continued, "Shuran, if you're uninterested in Worryless, Nya Linglong is quite decent too." Nonsense. Madam Ji harshly glared at Patriarch Ji. "You, shut up. I don't permit you to intrude in our children's business. I'll only acknowledge Worryless in my life. Although Linglong is alright, she still can't compare to Worryless." Patriarch Ji glanced at Madam Ji and nodded. "Alright, whatever you say is right. Shuran, you can have some fun outside, but you can't bring just anyone to the Ji home. Do you understand?" Madam Ji said meaningfully. Madam Ji naturally saw the similarities between this girl's features and Worryless, but she was 100 times prettier than Worryless. However, she didn't want her son to be misled by looks since sincerity was much more difficult to find. Her words might sound like they were meant for Ji Shuran, but they were actually meant for Yi Wanwan so she would develop self-understanding and wouldn't try to play any tricks. Yi Wanwan had a stomach of stifled fury but had to control herself from erupting. This fury wasn't for herself, it was for Bai Feng. She unswervingly followed Ji Shuran, but now, how wonderful. Her status as his fiancée wasn't announced, yet his parents didn't approve of her. Moreover, this scum, Ji Shuran, had ambiguous relationships with so many women, and even baby Tang Tang might be his child. Yi Wanwan purely felt sorry for President Fearless. Blah, scum. Chapter 1430 As Yi Wanwan looked at Madame Ji and Patriarch Ji, confusion surfaced on her face. For some reason, she found these two people very familiar, as though she knew them. It was like she'd seen them somewhere before, but she couldn't recall anything for now. After coming to the independent state, Yi Wanwan found herself becoming more and more confused. Many people and places were familiar, but she couldn't locate anything in her memories after careful consideration. Yi Wanwan even started suspecting she'd been to the independent state before her memories were masked. Perhaps, she was from the independent state herself. However, the portion of fragmented memories she had wasn't related to the independent state at all. In her recalled memories, she and her grandpa were in China, and grandpa told her that her parents passed away already. Mother, I brought Xiao Feng home today because I'd like to give the Ji family's extra entry slot for the martial arts conference to Xiao Feng, Ji Shuran said. The martial arts conference's entry slot. Madame Ji was clearly startled. As one of the 4 great clans in the independent state, the Ji family did obtain quite a few entries for the martial arts conference and had an extra entry. However, this type of entry slot was extremely valuable, so how could it be casually given to someone else? Madame Ji didn't say anything and merely glanced at Yi Wanwan aloofly. Shuran, I'll figure something out to enter the martial arts conference myself, Yi Wanwan said as she turned to Ji Shuran. It was obvious that the rest of the Ji family didn't like her, so it didn't seem realistic for her to obtain an entry slot to the martial arts conference from them. Heh. Not just anyone can participate in the martial arts conference, Madame Ji said with a dry smile. Before Yi Wanwan could reply, a middle-aged man swiftly entered the living room and bowed to Patriarch Ji and Madame Ji. Patriarch, Madam, the 3rd Miss of the Nya family is here for a visit. Yi Wanwan was surprised. 3rd Miss of the Nya family. Isn't that nameless Nya's 3rd sister? I think her name is Nya Linglong. Yi Wanwan might look calm on the surface, but turbulent emotions stormed through her on the inside. Back when she had a video call with Tang Tang in China while Tang Tang was in the independent state, nameless Nya's 3rd sister, Nya Linglong, saw her. If I'm recognized, wouldn't I be exposed? However, it's too late for me to leave now, Yi Wanwan straightened her body. Her only solution now was to meet each crisis with an impromptu solution. Even if she was recognized, she'd be fine as long as she refused to admit it. As the middle-aged man finished speaking, a tall, slender, good-looking woman with ink-colored hair that reached her waist strolled into the Ji family's living room with 2 girls dressed as maids behind her. Uncle, Auntie, Nya Linglong sweetly greeted them while looking at Patriarch Ji and Madame Ji with a docile demeanor. Patriarch Ji nodded curtly while Madame Ji quickly stood up. Linglong, how come you didn't tell us before coming? Madame Ji grasped Nya Linglong's hand, her eyes brimming with adoration for the girl. Madame Ji liked both worryless Nya and Nya Linglong from the Nya family a lot, especially since she watched Nya Linglong grow up. Nya Linglong chuckled and said, Linglong has missed you after not seeing you for many days. I happened to pass by the Ji estate today, so I bought some things and came to visit Uncle and Auntie. Chapter 1431 As she said this, the 2 maids brought by Nya Linglong placed her presents to the side. Linglong, we haven't seen your sister, Worryless, for a long time. How come she didn't come with you today? Patriarch Ji asked Nya Linglong. Nya Linglong's eyes glinted, and she chuckled lightly. Uncle G, my sister has been busy keeping Tang Tang company at home lately, so she doesn't have too much free time and didn't come today. Tell Worryless to come over too next time. Since Ling Long is here today, have a few drinks with Uncle G, Patriarch G said. Nya Ling Long smiled and bobbed her head eagerly. She charmingly said, great, I also happen to want to have a few drinks with Uncle G. An icy glint appeared in Nya Ling Long's eyes. What was so good about Worryless Nya? Not only did she get impregnated by a wild man and shamed the Nya family, causing them to be unable to stand proud in the independent state for many years, but she even disappeared for many years and went to China with that wild man. In Nya Linglong's eyes, a lousy tramp like Worryless didn't deserve to taint even a hair on Ji Shuran. Now, the patriarch and madam of the Ji family kept thinking about that harlot, Worryless. Thankfully, she made preparations ahead of time and got someone to pretend to be Worryless Nya. Oh right, how's Tang Tang doing lately? Madam Ji asked with a smile. Nya Linglong replied, Auntie. Tang Tang is doing very well recently. He's with sister and he's getting smarter and more well-behaved. However, he doesn't resemble sister too much. I wonder who he resembles. Tang Tang truly looked too exquisite and beautiful, but his mother, Worryless Nya, could be considered pretty at most. Both Patriarch Ji and Madam Ji's expressions shifted when they heard her words. Back then, Worryless Nya had a child before she was married, and no one knew who the child's father was. This incident not only shamed the Nya family but was also a gigantic hit to the Nya family and disgraced the Ji family as well. Back then, it was Worryless Nya herself who claimed she wouldn't marry anyone but Ji Shuran and announced to the whole independent state that she was Ji Shuran's fiancée. In the end, her child wasn't Ji Shuran's. Of course, they couldn't blame Worryless. Back then, that girl, Worryless, was sincerely devoted to Shuran, but their son didn't know to value her and caused her to leave her home for many years without returning. Madam Ji had always felt guilty about Worryless, so she couldn't blame Worryless at all. Nya Linglong secretly smiled when she saw the unhappiness in Patriarch Ji and Madam Ji's faces. The Nya family wasn't willing to bring up Worryless Nya's fault from back then, and the Ji family was the same. Hence, Nya Linglong said what she did to make Patriarch Ji and Madam Ji clearly understand what kind of trash Worryless Nya was. Then Nya Linglong turned to Ji Shuran and stood up, walking toward him. Brother Shuran. Long time no see. How are you doing lately? What are you asking about specifically? Ji Shuran asked aloofly. Nya Linglong was startled. She didn't know how to respond to Ji Shuran's words. Madam Ji looked at Nya Linglong pensively and shook her head exasperatedly. Madam Ji naturally knew Nya Linglong's thoughts. Nya Linglong had never hidden her feelings toward Ji Shuran, it became especially obvious after Worryless Nya went missing. Brother Shuran, do you still miss Sister Worryless? But Brother Shuran, you know that Sister Worryless has Tang Tang already. Her heart isn't with you anymore. Nya Linglong looked at Ji Shuran pitifully. Chapter 1432 Upon hearing that, both Madam Ji and Patriarch Ji shook their heads. Nya Linglong spoke the truth. Ever since Worryless Nya was found and returned to the Nya family, she hadn't stepped foot in the Ji residence or sought Ji Shuran out for a reunion. If this was the past, Worryless Nya would have wished nothing more than to live at the Ji estate every day, and her eyes would be glued to Ji Shuran even when eating. Ji Shuran had an indescribable smile on his lips and he sent a fleeting glance to Nya Linglong but didn't say anything. On the side, Yi Wanwan gritted her teeth in fury. Ji Shuran was absolutely a piece of scum. She was sitting right next to him, but he remained intricately entangled with the Nya sisters. Thankfully, she wasn't the president of the Fearless Alliance, Bai Feng, or else the top of her head would have turned into the Siberian grassland. Ah, Tang Tang is a pitiful child too. He was abandoned at home after sister gave birth to him and hasn't felt his parents' love since he was born. It would be fine if that was it, but Tang Tang still doesn't know who his biological father is. Nia Linglong's eyes looked misty, as though her heart immensely ached for Tang Tang. What deep sisterly affections you two have, Ji Shuran commented with a smile. Nia Linglong gently nodded. I'm the most grateful to Sister Worryless in this world. If it weren't for Sister Worryless, I would have died a long time ago. Of course I hope for Sister Worryless to be happy from the bottom of my heart. So it's wonderful now that Sister Worryless is home, and has Tang Tang for company. Linglong, while your Sister Worryless wasn't home all these years, it was you who took care of Tang Tang by yourself and didn't even have time to find a boyfriend. It's been hard on you. Madam Ji looked at Nia Linglong with heartache on her face. It would be nothing even if I'm single my whole life for my sister's sake. Nia Linglong donned a docile demeanor. Your Sister Worryless is lucky to have a sensible and clever sister like you, Patriarch Ji said with a smile. Uncle Ji, I'm just doing what a sister should. Anyway, if it weren't for Sister, I would have died already. I'm the one who's lucky to be Sister's younger sister, Nia Linglong replied. Let's talk about something else. Ji Shuran's slender fingers lightly tapped the arm of his chair. Sure, whatever Brother Shuran says. Nia Linglong nodded, but her brows furrowed lightly when she caught sight of Yi Wanwan from the corner of her eyes. Who is this woman, and why is she in the Ji residence? Miss, one of the maids, the one dressed in red clothes, quietly murmured next to Nia Linglong's ears. I heard from people in the Ji family that it was Emperor Ji who brought her here. Nia Linglong's face instantly darkened, and a frightening, chilly glint surfaced in her eyes. Ji Shuran actually brought a woman home to the Ji residence and allowed that woman to dine with Patriarch Ji and Madam Ji? Nia Linglong surveyed the woman again. The woman looked a bit familiar, as though she had seen this woman somewhere else before. However, Nia Linglong didn't linger on this matter and turned around, the darkness on her face replaced by a charming mask. Sister Lingfei, who's this sister? Nia Linglong asked Ji Lingfei. Shuran's friend, Ji Lingfei explained. Friend? Nia Linglong didn't reveal anything on her face but her eyes turned murky. Ji Shuran never had female friends. Countless women wanted to approach Ji Shuran over the years but not a single person could even get a tiny bit close to Ji Shuran. Not to mention other people, but Ji Shuran often avoided even her and was very indifferent toward her. So how was this woman capable of being brought to the Ji residence to dine with Ji Shuran's family? Chapter 1433, Have we met somewhere before? Nia Linglong suddenly turned to Yi Wanwan and asked. Yi Wanwan's face shifted immediately. Seriously, what I'm afraid of is unavoidable. I don't think so, Miss Nia, Yi Wanwan replied aloofly with a glance at Nia Linglong. Nia Linglong's two servants instantly turned angry when they saw Yi Wanwan's attitude. Just who does this woman think she is? How dare she treat and look at the third miss of the Nia family like this? If she weren't Ji Shuran's friend and they weren't at the Ji estate, they would have definitely made her regret speaking like that. Hello, I'm Nia Linglong. Since you're Brother Shuran's friend, you're my friend as well. What's your name? Nia Linglong asked Yi Wanwan with a smile. By Feng, Yi Wanwan answered calmly. By Feng, is it? I feel like I've heard this name somewhere before. Nia Linglong looked pensive but couldn't recall where. She quickly asked, Oh right, when did Miss Bai meet Brother Shuran? I've never heard Brother Shuran mention you. Yi Wanwan was puzzled. Didn't third Miss Nia know she was the president of the Fearless Alliance and Ji Shuran's fiancée? Yi Wanwan's female intuition instinctively told her Nia Linglong was hostile toward her. Nia Linglong's every word seemed to assert her dominance, as though Ji Shuran belonged to her. Brother Shuran is normally buried in work and can't take care of himself properly. But Brother Shuran has looked more lively lately. It must be because Sister Bai Feng is taking good care of Brother Shuran. Allow me to thank Sister Bai Feng for taking care of Brother Shuran. The corners of Nia Linglong's lips turned up as she looked at Yi Wanwan. fury ignited in Yi Wanwan's heart. Although she wasn't the real Bai Feng or Ji Xiuran's fiancée, she was currently using Bai Feng's identity, so she felt somewhat indebted to Bai Feng. Since she was using Bai Feng's identity, how could she allow this woman to steal Bai Feng's man? Moreover, with Bai Feng's personality, she absolutely wouldn't allow people to trample all over her in this kind of situation. Yi Wanwan ignored Nia Linglong and turned to Ji Xiuran instead. She asked, "Xiuran, who is she? She seems close to you." Before Ji Xiuran could respond, Nia Linglong's expression darkened. It was so black that ink could drip from her face. Her every word secretly asserted her dominance, but this woman was even more straightforward. This woman provoked her directly. "A friend," Ji Xiuran said to Yi Wanwan. "A friend?" Yi Wanwan smiled sardonically. "A friend, huh? Since she's a friend, you should have introduced her to me earlier." The two maids next to Nia Linglong both clenched their fists tightly, rage boiling in their eyes. "Yes." Ji Xiuran responded with a nod. As they spoke, the Ji family's servants entered the hall with food in tow. "Let's eat," Ji Xiuran said. "Sure." Nia Linglong obediently sat next to Ji Xiuran and directed a piece of meat toward Ji Xiuran's bowl. Yi Wanwan wore a bright smile and picked out the piece of meat from Ji Xiuran's bowl before he could pick up his chopsticks. Nia Linglong expressionlessly stared at Yi Wanwan. "Xiuran, you've had so many business gatherings lately, so you should eat less meat. Here, have some vegetables." Yi Wanwan picked up a giant piece of leek and placed it into Ji Xiuran's bowl. Chapter 1434, Brother Xiuran doesn't eat leek, Nia Linglong interjected. However, just as Nia Linglong said that, Ji Xiuran picked up the leek and ate it. "It tastes good," Ji Xiuran said. A vein popped out of Nia Linglong's forehead. Just who was this woman? How could she cause Ji Xiuran to act like this? However, Nia Linglong gathered her emotions swiftly and docilely looked at Ji Xiuran. She gently asked, "Brother Xiuran, you've never eaten leek before." "I eat it now," Ji Xiuran answered. Yi Wanwan's lips turned up. It appeared Ji Xiuran's desire to live was very strong. "Uncle Ji, let's make a toast." Nia Linglong stood up suddenly and raised her glass toward Patriarch Ji with a sweet smile. Patriarch Ji nodded and downed the glass. Yi Wanwan also picked up her glass and filled it. Then she stood up and said to Patriarch Ji, "Uncle, cheers." Patriarch Ji glanced at Yi Wanwan aloofly but bumped his cup with Yi Wanwan's out of politeness in the end, and they shared a drink. "Uncle Ji, the martial arts conference is about to start, and the Ji family should have enough allocated entries. I hope you can give the extra entry slot to me, Uncle Ji," Nia Linglong requested Patriarch Ji with a smile. "What? The Nia family doesn't have enough entries?" Patriarch Ji was surprised. Nia Linglong shook her head. "Uncle Ji, eldest brother has a lot of friends on the outside, so he gave away a lot of the Nia family's entries to his friends this time." Madam Ji was exasperated. They might have doubted it if it was someone else, but nameless Nia was definitely someone who would do something like that. "Sure, Auntie will give an entry to you," Madam Ji said with a smile. Nia Linglong looked joyfully surprised upon hearing that and hastily stood up to toast Madam Ji. Yi Wanwan didn't speak at all for the rest of the meal and merely watched Nia Linglong perform. Nia Linglong finally stood up after some more casual conversation with Madam Ji and Patriarch Ji and left with her two maids. Nia Linglong's eyes indifferently swept over Yi Wanwan's figure before she left the Ji estate without looking back. Linglong is truly an extraordinary child. Madam Ji looked very fond as she said, "Back then, Worryless was Scarlet Flame's Academy's legend and created all sorts of records in the Scarlet Flame's Mercenary Guild. However, Linglong broke all the records Worryless created." Yi Wanwan was startled. She naturally knew about the Scarlet Flame's Academy of the Independent State and heard quite a handful of stories about the Scarlet Flame's Academy from Big Dipper. Rumors said that worryless Nya, the renowned second miss of the Nya family and the second sister of nameless Nya, once studied at Scarlet Flame's Mercenary Academy and established many of the records in the Scarlet Flame's Mercenary Guild. There were countless mercenary academies in the independent state, but only 3 were famous. Scarlet Flame's Academy was one of them. In the early days, the 3 famous mercenary academies had an acrimonious relationship, and many students of the Scarlet Flames Academy were assassinated by the 2 other mercenary academies when they went out on missions. Eventually, worryless Nya stepped up and gave the geniuses and top students of the other 2 academies a fierce beating. She became the idol of the entire Scarlet Flames Academy and was labeled its legend and the most heroic student of the Scarlet Flames Academy. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.